Harry Kane, also known as the Hurricane, the long four-headed bandit, whatever you want to call him. For about a decade, he menaced the Premier League, putting up 20-goal seasons over and over, collecting a few league golden boots, and scoring so much that by the age of 30, he's already lurking less than 50 goals away from Alan Shearer's Premier League record of 260. He has 10 straight seasons with at least 20 goals in all competitions. He's hit 30 league goals 3 different times, and he's one of the most elite and well-rounded strikers of his generation. Currently for Bayern Munich, he's already at 31 goals and 7 assists in the Bundesliga with almost 10 games left to play, and he has Robert Lewandowski's single-season Bundesliga record in his sights. Plenty of players would dream of having Kane's career, yet still many people refuse to put him on the same pedestal as other all-time great strikers of our generation. Suarez, Lewandowski, Benzema, even Aguero sometimes is constantly the center of the modern striker discussion before Kane. Whether you agree with it or not is up to you. Either way, we're all well aware of why that is. His trophy cabinet has been collecting more dust than a vacuum cleaner his entire career. Since the day he first took the field for Tottenham in August 2012, Harry Kane has never won an actual trophy. If you want to get technical, you can point at the Audi Cup, but let's be serious, that's a preseason tournament. For both club and country, Kane is completely and utterly trophyless. It's a massive stain on his otherwise impressive legacy, and at the age of 30, he's slowly running out of time. A top player winning literally nothing after a decade sounds pretty ridiculous, but it's not like Kane hasn't had chances. He's been in numerous finals and lost every one of them. The constant losing has earned him a reputation as a choke artist, but is that actually accurate? We got no choice but to hop in the time machine and see for ourselves. Today we rewind to 2013, where Kane played his first real season in the Prem for Tottenham. Yeah, he had his debut the previous season, but he only played one game off the bench and played a few games for Norwich. That doesn't really count. He hasn't changed much from these days. I mean, his forehead was still wider than a hippo's back, but his hairline hadn't really started fleeing towards the back of his head yet. He only played 10 games and started 6 for Tottenham in the league, but he scored 3 times. Unfortunately, Tottenham finished 6th, 17 points off Manchester City at the top. In the League Cup, they lost to West Ham in the quarterfinals 2-1. In the FA Cup, they got dropped off by Arsenal in the 3rd round. In the Europa League, they got bounced by Benfica. 1 year down, and Kane hadn't really even come close to sniffing a trophy. None of this had much to do with him, of course. He didn't play that much. Tottenham had Bayern at this time, and I'm pretty sure he was the most consistent starting striker that season. The next season, though, 2014-15, Kane got his chance and he snatched it and ran. In 34 league appearances, he scored 21 goals. Unfortunately, Tottenham was still a little bit doo-doo despite their young talents like Kane, Christian Eriksen, and Kyle Walker, and they finished 5th. Walker had missed over half the season with injury and was clearly still not back to normal yet after he returned, though, and literally almost the entire team was in their early to mid-20s. The future looked bright in North London. Well, for Spurs specifically. Around this time, my boys were getting abused at home by Monaco in the Champions League, and Giroud was showing his bare ass. It didn't get no better either. The great collapse of 2016 wasn't too far in the future, but let's not even talk about that. Right now, we focused on Spurs being ass. Tottenham lost to Leicester in the 4th round of the FA Cup that season and got booted out of the Europa League by Fiorentina in the intermediate stage. In the League Cup, though, Kane got his first real shot at a trophy. They beat Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Newcastle, and Sheffield United to march into the final against none other than Chelsea, who also won the league that season. Lloris kept Tottenham in the game with a few great saves, but Tottenham's attack was nowhere to be found. Kane got 2 solid chances towards the end of the game, but he couldn't capitalize on either, and Kane went down in his first final. So another year passed without a speck of silverware for Kane. No worries though, he's only 22. Eriksen was 23, Walker was 25, and they'd been joined by a 19-year-old with unreal potential, Dele Alli. Adding a 23-year-old Korean signing for Leverkusen early in the 2015 season, and Tottenham looked more than promising. Kane started every game and hit 25 goals for the first of numerous times this season, and Tottenham actually made somewhat of a title run. Unfortunately for them, Leicester's Cinderella story Black Magic was too much, and Tottenham only finished 3rd. They were second for every week since match week 25, but back-to-back losses against Southampton and Newcastle in the last 2 weeks of the season dropped them behind Arsenal. It may sound like Kane and Tottenham fumbled the bag, but they didn't really have much business being in the title race in the first place. They were 5th in mid-December and then went on a run where they only lost twice in a span of 20 games, beating City and United in that time span. Dropping points in each of their last 4 games didn't help, and Kane only scored once in that last stretch, but they wouldn't have caught Leicester anyway. Before that 4-game slump, Tottenham was at 68 points and Leicester finished with 81. In the last 10 games, he scored 9 times, including a 4-game stretch where he had 6 goals and scored against both Arsenal and Liverpool. Sure, he faded away at the end, but you can't really blame him for not delivering a title to Tottenham this season. Also in North London, Giroud was sending Arsenal fans all over the world to suicide hotlines, and Arsenal ended up just a point ahead of Tottenham and 10 points behind Leicester. Tottenham did lose to Arsenal in the 3rd round of the League Cup and lost in the 5th round of the FA Cup to Crystal Palace. In the Europa League, they got dismissed by Dortmund in the round of 16. Kane barely played in that one, actually only 14 minutes total across both legs. Doesn't change the fact that they got slapped up though. For England, Kane led the way at the Euros, but he was almost completely invisible. He failed to score or assist in the tournament, and England was bounced in the round of 16 by Iceland in one of the most shameful performances of all time for the country. I know English fans are still traumatized from watching him take those set pieces, so we're just going to move on. The next season was one full of both excitement and disappointment for Kane and Tottenham, and it's undoubtedly the best season of football Tottenham has played in recent memory. I would say it's a shame this team didn't win a trophy, but I'm legally not allowed to as an Arsenal fan, so Instead, I think I'm going to go with this team easily could have won a trophy, but luck was not on their side. Tottenham couldn't make it out of their Champions League group, partially because Kane missed half the group stage with an ankle injury. They lost one of the games he missed and drew another one, 5 potential points gone. It was a rough start to an otherwise brilliant season. Kane had 29 league goals, Dele Alli had 18 goals and 7 assists at the age of 20. Christian Eriksen had yet another elite season, tallying 8 goals from the midfield and 15 assists, the most he ever had in the Prem season. Not to mention Son, who wasn't a consistent starter yet, scored 14 times and assisted 6 goals. For the second straight year, Tottenham were stuck at 5th until December, where they turned it up and only lost twice in their last 23 games. The only problem was a relentless Chelsea team that they simply couldn't get close to. The nearest they got was 4 points behind with 4 weeks left, but Chelsea didn't lose another game, and Tottenham finished 7 points back. They lost in the intermediate stage of the Europa League again, but they actually went somewhere in the FA Cup. A Kane 5th round hat-trick, then a Son 6th round hat-trick led them to a semi-final date with Chelsea, where, of course, they pissed themselves again and got sent packing. Tottenham was actually keeping up with them, and if not for a couple of stupid tackles by Alderweireld and Son that gave up set pieces that led to goals, Tottenham might have had a lead. In the second half, though, Hazard came on, and after that, it was wraps. He rolled in the winner, and then later, Matic slammed in an absolute screamer to put the game away. Kane finished another season with no silverware to be found. Kyle Walker left Tottenham before the 2017 season began to join Manchester City, who went on to become the first Premier League centurions ever. Tottenham finished 3rd again, 23 points behind City. Kane dropped 30 goals for the first time and still didn't win the Golden Boot because of Salah's record-breaking season. I swear the football gods just don't like this guy. What ancient spirit did he anger? In the FA Cup, they got sent home by United in the semi-finals, and Kane completely blanked in the 2-1 loss. He didn't play in any League Cup games, and Tottenham lost in the 4th round. They didn't get past the round of 16 in the UCL despite Kane scoring an away goal. At home, he blanked, and Juventus won 4-3 on aggregate. No worries, though. The season wasn't completely over. Kane still had time to win a trophy with England at the World Cup. He was joined by his Tottenham teammates Dele Alli and Kieran Trippier. Kane dropped 5 goals on the group stage, but after his goal against Colombia in the round of 16, he didn't score again in the tournament. They still got past Sweden, but Modric and Croatia sent them packing in the semifinals. Yet another season had come to a close without a trophy for Kane. In the 2018-19 season, Kane missed 10 games with injury, all in the last 16 weeks. Tottenham didn't have much of a chance of winning the league anyway. City and Liverpool both hit almost 100 points. The injury did affect their Champions League run, though. Kane hurt himself in the first leg of Tottenham's quarterfinal against City, and he missed the rest of the league season. Son and Lucas Moura dragged Tottenham all the way to the final against Liverpool, and it wasn't really clear if Kane was healthy yet, but Pochettino decided to play him anyway. He completely ghosted, and Tottenham got utterly swallowed by Van Dijk and Liverpool. In the League Cup, they lost to Chelsea in the semis with Kane unable to play the second leg. In the FA Cup, Crystal Palace beat them in the 4th round. Once again, Kane closed out a season completely empty-handed. This one wasn't really his fault, and you could easily argue they might have won the League Cup or maybe even the UCL if he didn't get hurt. Ifs and hypotheticals aren't trophies, though. The cobwebs in his trophy cabinet continue to grow. Unfortunately, by the end of the 2019-20 season, it started to feel like Kane's window of opportunity had completely passed. Either Liverpool, City, or both were regularly hitting damn near 100 points. Tottenham was only getting worse. Eriksen missed half the season with injury, and Ali missed a big chunk of games too. Kane scored 18 goals, and he had help from Son, but that was the season that those two really started to carry the club on their own. Kane himself couldn't stay healthy the whole season either, though, and he missed both legs of Tottenham's round of 16 loss to RB Leipzig in the Champions League. Liverpool ran away with the league, and Tottenham finished 6th, their worst finish since Kane's first actual season with him. He was injured during their entire FA Cup run when they lost in the 5th round, and he didn't play in their only League Cup game, which they lost. Shit was getting bad. In the 2020 season, Kane was the closest he'd ever been to getting a trophy in his entire career. Of course, it wasn't with Tottenham, who at this point were starting to regularly finish outside the top 4. They finished 7th place, their worst finish in well over a decade. Kane and Son tried their best with 64 goal contributions between them, but this Spurs team was genuinely doo-doo water. Dele Alli was washed at 24, and Christian Eriksen was gone. Gareth Bale came back for a little while and scored 11 times, but this Tottenham team was genuinely just not good. I can't say too much because around this time, we were in the fucking mud too. North London really reeked for a while until Arsenal came out the gutter last season. Tottenham didn't make it super far in the FA Cup and got kicked out of the Europa League by Dinamo Zagreb, which is a fucking insane team to lose to. That's embarrassing. Kane still reached 2 other finals this season though, his first time playing in multiple finals in a season. Of course, he lost them both. City shut Tottenham down in the League Cup final, and Kane was forced to turn to the Euros as his last hope of winning a trophy that season. He did his best to dispel the choker narrative and scored 4 times in England's first 3 knockout games against Germany, Ukraine, and Denmark. We all know what happened in that final, though. An unfortunate mental collapse from some of England's best. We're not going to talk about it, though. Saka, you were a teenager. It's okay. The 2021-22 season wasn't that different for Kane at Tottenham. It was the first time since the 2013 season that somebody besides Kane was Tottenham's leading scorer, with Son dropping 23 goals to Kane's 17. And they did barely scrape into the UCL with the 4th place finish, but they got booted out of the FA Cup in the 5th round and got grouped in the Conference League. They managed to make the League Cup semifinal where, yet again, it was Chelsea that knocked them out. I think it's vastly understated just how badly Chelsea has completely manhandled Harry Kane throughout his career, besides that one New Year's Day game where he absolutely fried them. He's played them 22 times and only won 7 games. He has 8 goals in those 22 games. They've sent him home in knockout competitions 4 times since 2017. It's borderline ownership at this point. The 2022-23 season was a nightmare for Kane. Made it to the round of 16 in the UCL just to blank both games and get sent packing by AC Milan. Dropped 30 goals again, and not only did it mean nothing because that garbage Tottenham team finished 8th, he didn't even get the Golden Boot as consolation because of Haaland. The World Cup made it all worse. That skied penalty that sealed England's fate against France probably still haunts him to this day. Summer 2023 came and rumors were swirling about where Kane would go. Some said United, some said Madrid. Instead, Kane went to Bayern, who had 11 straight Bundesliga titles. Surely he gets his guaranteed trophy, right? Right? Well, not exactly. Of course, the very first season that Kane arrives in Germany, Leverkusen put together the most insane run of dominance in German football history and refused to lose a single game in any competition this season. Bayern, who thought they had a super team and a guaranteed title, are sitting 10 points behind Xabi Alonso's men with less than 10 games to go. It didn't help that a month or so ago, Kane got absolutely suffocated against Leverkusen in the biggest game of the season. Kane also had a chance to secure his first trophy in the DFB Super Cup at the beginning of the season, but Bayern got shut out by Leipzig 3-0. They then got knocked out in the second round of this year's DFB Pokal by a 3rd division team. Yeah, that curse might be real. Kane still has a shot at trophies with the Euros coming up. Bayern are also still in the UCL. The real question is, though, is Harry Kane a choke artist? We've gone through his entire career, but now let's take a look at the numbers. Kane has played in 15 finals and semifinals in his career. He scored just 3 times in those 15 games, one which was a penalty and another that was a rebound off a pen that he missed. He was basically playing injured in the UCL final in 2019, but besides that, there's no other occurrence where he was majorly, clearly hindered by an injury in a final or semifinal. Knockout competitions aren't the end-all, be-all, though. I'll give you that. Even though Tottenham hasn't contended for many trophies, their matchups against the other teams in the Big Six are still important. Kane's numbers against the Big Six aren't anything crazy, though. Don't get me wrong, in the North London derby, he's a menace, or at least he used to be. The last few years, Gabriel's done a great job keeping him quiet outside of a couple penalties and the occasional open play goal. Overall, against the Big Six, though, Kane has 81 appearances, 39 goals, and 9 assists. 11 of his goals are penalties, and yes, he does have a few great, memorable performances, and also, yes, some of his games where he didn't score or assist, he still played very well, but he's gone missing very, very often against the best of the Premier League. Is it enough to label him a choke artist? Honestly, I say yes. I don't think the narrative that he isn't a big game player is an egregious one, especially because he doesn't really have a lot to disprove that. Staying at Tottenham for that long has really done serious damage to his career because now the pressure is on him even more in huge games. And even at Bayern, where trophies have been guaranteed for over a decade, he's folded twice so far, in the league and in the Super Cup. In your average Bundesliga season, Bayern would probably have been first right now, but of course, Kane's arrival had to coincide with one of the most insane seasons of football in the history of the sport. You can't make this up. I feel bad for him. Hey, at this point, he got to go to PSG or something. That's the closest he going to get to Bayern in terms of a guaranteed league win. Watch him go over there at Monaco, suddenly tee up and go 2 straight seasons unbeaten. At that point, just hang up the cleats and go be a family man. That trophy ain't never coming home. England still got a shot at the Euros with an absurdly stacked team, so don't sleep. But at this point, it's probably safer to bet against Kane. One of the best players of our generation, and he has the luck of a mouse living in a cat shelter. He's only 31. He got maybe 5 or so years left before he really falls off, especially because his game doesn't really completely rely on athleticism. He'll pick up a trophy somewhere. Maybe.